Hi, I'm Tricia coming to you with the Club Scrap Card Kit Assembly Workshop for the collection called Roost, released in September by Club Scrap. So our members receive this collection, and if you are here as a member, welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you're here as a guest, maybe just giving a kit for a try for the first time, I am also glad you're here. And maybe you're just observing and trying to figure out how these kits all come together. Either way, today you're going to learn something new, I hope. All right, I have a very specific approach to our card making, and that begins by just simply taking everything out of the kit and isolating the papers. Now the kits come with embellishments and envelopes and things, but we're just going to work with the paper for starters. I have my trimmer handy and some printed instructions. I also have an organizer. This is an accordion pocket file that I developed a number of years ago to help us stay organized. As I mentioned, we're making a dozen cards. So everything for the first set of cards, as we trim it, will be placed into the appropriate pocket, A, B, or C. And if we have any scraps or things that don't have an official assignment, those will go in D until we're sure we're not going to decorate with them, and then they can go in the circular file. But the way we approach our card making, there isn't a lot of waste, which is pretty cool. The lip of this accordion pocket file sits under the trimmer base, and then we are going to sort the papers in the order that will trim them. So we'll begin by finding a metallic taupe color in the stack, and I like to hold my stack of papers up off the work surface. They're easier to sort through that way. So the taupe metallic is the only metallic in the set, and it has that lineal texture to it. I'm going to place that on my trimmer base, and then I'm going to find one sheet of brown. I have two each of a lot of different colors here. So metallic and brown, and then one brick. This is the brick, just one sheet of that, followed by one blue. Then find two white plain. So in this, the prints are printed on a nice white cover weight. So just make sure you have the white that is white on both sides, two of those. Then brick. It's easier to find these pieces as we eliminate paper from the pile. Then a blue. Next, taupe. This is the metallic, of course. You should have a brown. Two prints, and I save these for last because by now you're pretty warmed up in all the trimming you have to do, and hopefully these will turn out beautifully when you do cut them. These other ones, maybe if something goes wrong, you could replace it with something from your stash. So two prints. For Cutaparts, then we'll trim the one that has kind people, or my kind of people, and then we'll trim the one that has the big rooster on it. So that I put those all face down, all those prints, because now I'm going to flip the whole stack over back to the beginning, and the taupe will be the first piece that we trim. I'm going to check the grain direction of this taupe, and to do that I'll hold by the edge, study that the paper dips, and then if I hold it by an adjacent edge you can see how stiff it is. So what I'm looking for you to do is have the paper placed into the trimmer so that it dips easily from left to right, and that does work pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and be brave and check the grain direction of this brown as well. This is a very heavyweight paper, but I can definitely tell this way is real stiff and this way is very loose, and that's how I want it to go into the trimmer. So we're going to trim both at the same time. Our first cut will be 8.5 inches. It's a typical cut for a card maker. 8.5. Always stabilize on that clear bar before you slice and make sure your paper is level with the top guide here. Then rotate that 8.5 inch piece and trim at 11. Stabilize. And 5.5. Again, very typical cuts for card makers. 5.5. Okay, so I'm going to stack up the two sets of 5.5 by 8.5 cards, and I'm going to set them aside because they need to be scored a little bit later. And this little guy doesn't really have an official home, so I'm going to pop that in pocket D. And then the next strip, I'm going to cut at 6. All right, so 6 inches. And these 4 pieces will be set aside also to be scored. Next, I'm going to take one brick, and this time we need to Make sure the paper dips easily from top to bottom. And then same for the blue. Let's get that dipping top to bottom as we place it in the trimmer. And our first cut here, I'm going to do 2 at the same time. We'll be at 10 3/4. 8 3/4. And 6 1/4. Now rotate and trim at 11 1/2. And these 2 pieces get set aside to be scored. Those are going to grow up to be card bases. These could be scraps. We'll put in D. And the next pieces, they're 2 1/2 inches wide, 2 1/2 by 12. I'm going to cut at 9 1/2 and 4 3/4. Stack up these larger rectangles. They go in pocket A. For now, I want you to set aside these squares. Pick up the next pair of pieces. This is a 2 by 12. And we're going to cut on all the even numbers. So that makes it pretty easy. We'll start at 10. Make sure they're lined up properly here. 10. 8. 6. 4. And 2. All of these squares will be used in set C. On this next strip, I want you to trim at 10. And 5. Put both of these pieces in pocket A. And this is a negligible scrap, but I'll still save it in D just in case. You never know. You could punch a little flower out of that or something. All right, now we're moving on to the white. And I like that the stack has been prepared, so our papers are in order. And this time I too want the paper to dip from top to bottom. There we go. Very nice. And the reason we're doing that is because eventually the paper will be folded in that direction. So we want it to fold. And we'll trim at 10. And 6 1/4. Rotate and trim at 11 1/2. Set the 2 larger pieces aside to be scored, and then you do have, again, another skinny scrap. Pick up the next pair. We'll cut at 10 and 5. Stack up the panels, they go in pocket A. And for now, set these aside, different pile. And then we're going to go horizontal at 7 in pocket C. These are scraps. I'm putting those in D for now. Now we got brick. So I'm going to take this sheet and make sure it goes in the trimmer so it dips from top to bottom. Same here. We will cut now at 11 1/2. 11 1/2 here. And 7. Rotate the 7 by 12 and cut at 10. Set aside to be scored. This rectangle will trim on the even numbers. 6, 4, and 2. So you're going to have a bunch of squares and you're going to have a pair of rectangles. The squares go in pocket C. The rectangles in D because I don't think I used them. The next strip, 9 3/4. 6 1/2. Take the 6 1/2 inch piece we just made and put that in C. And the next piece, this is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. We're going to put it in horizontally and cut it 3 3/4. Put that in pocket B. We created a pretty small scrap there. The last rectangle, A. This narrow little strip, we're going to make a decorative element out of this and cut it horizontally at 7. And for such a narrow piece like this, I'm just going to rest it below the cut line, below the measurement here of inches, so I can see a little better. The 7-inch piece goes in pocket C, and then the last 2 little pieces are scraps going in D for now. And we get to do that all one more time. Everything we just did for those last previous sheets. So this is the taupe metallic dipping top to bottom, and the brown, real stiff that way. Okay, so both sheets for grains running, top to bottom, cut at 11.5 again. Always stabilize on, especially on 2 sheets, and then 7. Rotate and cut at 10. Set the larger pieces aside to be scored. And now I'm going to cut these horizontally at 6, 4, and 2. Gather up the squares and place them in C. There are 2 little scraps. On this next larger sheet, first cut's at 9 3/4, 6.5. The large panel goes in C. We're going to cut the rectangle horizontally at 3 3/4. It goes in B, and then your little scraps in D. The larger rectangle, A. And then you have these tiny little strips again. We'll trim them at 7. And place the 7-inch pieces in C. And these are scraps I'll place in D. Not much in D, really, just really little pieces. Okay, print. Doesn't matter which way you slice it. We're not folding it, so the grain won't matter. I'm going to cut at 6. Now I'm going to take these 2 pieces and face them back to back, because that will allow the pieces to kind of stay together a little more easily, since the print kind of can cause some sliding. I'm going to trim a series of numbers that will create 1.5-inch pieces. So our first cut here is at 10.5, 9, 7.5, 6, 4.5, 3, 1.5. I know I'm probably going way too fast for my beginners and maybe just right for my pros, but you can adjust your playback speed on YouTube to slow me down to like a 0.75 if you like. Some people, it's a little sleepy sounding, but it might work for you. Right, I'm sorting these back out and facing them all the correct way. All of these strips go in pocket B. Nice efficiency there. Next, the final print will go at 10.5. Again, grain doesn't matter. 5 1/4. Now I'm going to take the 2 pieces that are the same and face them again. So we'll cut at the same time at 11, 9 1/4, 7.5, 6 1/4, 5, 2.5. Big stack of stuff that just fell down there. Let's sort it out. Okay, we've got 2 sets of these larger panels that we ended with. Those all go in pocket A. Then we have 2 sets of skinnier panels. These are 1 inch, or 1 1/4 rather, 1 1/4. Those are also going to go in A. Next, we have 2 sets of these 1 3/4 inch pieces, and we have 2 of these 1 inch. So the 1 inch pieces I want you to put in pocket D. I didn't use them. Now we've got these little 1 3/4 inch pieces. We're going to cut them horizontally at 3 1/2 and 1 3/4. So you just made 2 sets of squares, 3 sets of squares rather, and all 3 of them go in pocket C. If you want, you can face them. And again, pocket C, a whole bunch of other squares. Got a lot of squares on those cards. Then take the other set. We're going to do the same exact thing. So 3 1/2 and 1 3/4. Now it's really nice to have this little bar here. You can still push on it while you're trimming something small. Again, we've got a set of squares here and pocket C with their friends. Then we have this last strip we're trimming at 7. The larger piece goes in pocket C, and then this is a scrap going in D. We've arrived at Cutaparts, so I'm going to remove everything from outside of that plus sign. We call that a registration mark, and you find one at every corner of your Cutapart sheet. So do your best to line up that hash mark with the edge of your blade and then rotate it. Now, if you didn't quite make it to the mark on that first try, no problem. Just go back and grab it at the end on your final rotation. The trimmer is capable of taking off just like a hair's thickness of paper, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Okay, so now I'm going to shoot for 12 inches here, and then one final neaten up here on this last rotation. And you can see that I've literally removed a hair's width of paper here, and I'll throw those out and return my Cutapart so that the words excellent are on the right, and I'll begin with a trim at 10 3/4. Then 7 1/2, 4 1/4, and rotate. This piece will cut at 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. That's nice, isn't it? Gather everything up and let's sort it out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them going in pocket A. And then these 2 we're going to set aside for now on that pile with the other pieces that we've been setting aside that aren't going to be scored later. Then on this next strip, you have the little artwork on the end here. We're going to cut that off. So we're starting at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. You stack up the pieces that are the same, and they're going to go in B. And this guy goes in B as well. This next strip, same thing. The little flower arrangement will be on the right. So 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Gather these up along with our little bouquet of flowers here. And that's also going to go in B. Now we have these excellents. We're going to trim at 9, 6, and 3. All of these go in B as well. Final Cutapart now. We're going to once again clean up that perimeter so that we create that nice 12 by 12. So I'm going to go around, and you want to do the same. You can pause me while you do that. All right, here we are with a bunch of squares. I wonder what card those are going to go with. Let's trim. Let's see. It's going to be 10 1/4, making sure that the hope all is well is in the left, upper left corner. 8 1/2, 6, and 3. Rotate and trim at 6. Both of these go in pocket C. And the next strip, same thing, trim at 6, pocket C, The next strip, cut at 9, 6, and 3. These are innies for set A. And now you have these 2 sets of strips that get trimmed the same way. I'm going to once face them back to back again. And we'll start out at 10.5, 8 3/4, 7, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, and 1 3/4. All right. And you can just put these to rights. Even the ducks, all of this goes in pocket C. That's it for the trimming. I think we'll do our scoring next, so I'll swap this for my score pal. We're starting out with whatever was on the top of the pile, which in my case is 7 by 10s. These simply get scored in half at 5 inches. So place it horizontally in the score pile so that the 10 is on the top, and score at 5. That brown is very heavyweight. On the texture, put the ridges on the top and score at 5. The blue, it doesn't matter, it's smooth on both sides. And the brick as well, smooth on both sides. So there's your 4 card bases for set C. I'm just going to put those in the pocket. Then you've got these longer pieces of white, 2 of them, and these measure 6 1/4 by 11 1/2. Got a lot of scoring here. We are going to place it in horizontally. We'll score at 4 1/2 and 8. Then flip the paper from the bottom to the top and score at 6 1/4 and 9 3/4. That creates 1, 2, 3, 4 equal size areas, and then you're actually the back of your card. Let's repeat that. So place it in horizontally, make sure it's the same size, 6 1/4 by 11 1/2. Score at 4 1/2 and 8. Flip, 6 1/4 and 9 3/4. Next one, 4 1/2, 8. Flip from the bottom to the top, 6 1/4, 9 3/4. One last one with the brick, 4 1/2 and 8. Bottom to top flip, 6 1/4, 9 3/4. Okay, gather all this up. It's going to go in pocket B. And next we have these smaller pieces. These are 3 1/2 by 6, and we get to score them horizontally in half at 3. So just 3. Score with the texture side up. 3, 3, and 3. These all go in pocket B. Now we have our final cards. These are going to become like an uneven gatefold card. So we'll score first at 2 3/4 and 7. Texture side up, 2 3/4 and 7. 2 3/4 and 7. Texture side up, 2 3/4 and 7. Very good. These go in pocket A. Next, I'm going to swap my score pal out for my big shot. I will say now that this is completely optional, but I normally don't show using the big shots, and I think a lot of you have them already. That's great. If not, no big deal. If you have round punches you want to use, perfect. You can skip this step entirely and use scissors. There are a lot of options here, but I'm just going to show you what I did. Now I have 2 little thinlet dies here. One is a smooth circle, and the line to line is 1 5/8. On my perforated edge circle, edge to edge is going to be 2 inches, okay? The reason I'm cutting these circles is I'm going to incorporate them into the scallop edge die that I've included in your kit as a goodie. So that just helps create some layers, and I transformed some scraps into some layers as well. So let me just show you how this worked for me. And I use a piece of painter's tape that I've pushed onto my fabric, jeans or whatever, any kind of a fabric that has a little cotton to it, and that way it doesn't stick real well, but it sticks enough to hold that in place. And then I'm going to sandwich it between my acrylic plates and just run it through my machine. And all of a sudden I have a keep calm and cluck on, should be a nice sized circle, okay? Then I'm just gonna go ahead and repeat this for the other one, try to center that up as best as I can, run it through, and then repeat for the other little chicks as well. So there's a set of 4 of these that you're gonna run through if you happen to have either a punch or a die that will fit this image. It doesn't have to be exact. All 4 of these cuties go in pocket A. Then to nest onto the tag, I'm rescuing a couple of scraps. So I have a piece of white. I don't know if you need to use the tape or not, but I just like that extra security. Run it through on each of the white, and then the blue and brick squares I had you set aside. Otherwise those would have been scraps, and now we're able to incorporate them into our project because, you know, because we can. These will also end up in pocket A, and you can just go ahead and finish that up if you are choosing to do so. Again, this is a completely optional step. I just wanted to share how I roll. And now with all that prep done, we can take our instructions and turn to the bottom of page 3. And these are the set A cards we'll make together. It shouldn't take too long. We've already done the bulk of the work, and now this is the fun part. It really is my favorite, doing this assembly. So we used to call this whole process assembly line scrapbooking or card making, because it is like everything is on an assembly line. And it goes so much faster that way. So we've got all these parts and pieces to sort through. What I typically do is just arrange everything in piles or in a stack, kind of in size from largest to smallest. That way you can see what you have and distribute it accordingly. So we're gonna make 4 cards at a time as I just kind of sort through all these pieces here and get a handle on what I've got. And the more organized you are before you start the next step, sort of the better the distribution is going to be. Now we have our card bases. Rule of thumb here on your card folding is that the ridge of your score line, or the bump of the score line, goes on the inside of your fold. And a way to remember that, a little alliteration, would be bury the bump. And sometimes I will burnish my folds with a bone folder as I go, and other times I stack everything up, and I can do like burnish 4 cards at a time if I want to. So it's just kind of a whatever you're in the mood to do. If I'm making like 100 Christmas cards, I make them in sets of maybe 5, and then I stack them all up in a big pile and burnish them all at once. It works really great. Okay, so we have the split gatefold here of uneven sized gates. And let's distribute the card bases in 4 little sections here. So the wide flap will end up being on the left. And then I'm going to go with the taupe, or with the brown rather, and then the taupe, another taupe, and a brown. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, each card, since it's kind of, one is metallic and the other is brown, I'm going to add a white liner to the inside of each card, because I want you, the sender, to be able to write a note without having to worry about having a special pen or something, you know, on hand there. Okay, now we have these printed panels, and they have been measured to fit, or trimmed to fit, the outside left flap of each card. And then you have these skinnier ones. Those are trimmed to fit the right narrower panel of each card. How handy is that? Then you have another set of nesting panels. So let's take the blue and then the brick and the brick and the blue. These are the larger of them. And then we're going to nest them with, and card 1 gets the brick. Then we're going to go brown and then blue and then taupe metallic. Then there's an art piece. So let's put the rooster and the rooster and the chicks and the chicks. That's kind of the outside. Each one will also receive one of the scalloped tags like we talked about. So let's just distribute those tags. And then if you chose to trim your circles, I'm going to put the blue and the white on those, and then white and brick. As far as the circle itself, keep calm and cluck on goes on the first 2 cards, and then the little chick goes on the last 2. Then I'm going to take the brick strip, then a blue strip, a brick, and a blue. Thinking of you, happy birthday to one cool chick, and happy birthday to one cool chick. Next, I'm going to take some envelopes here, and these are the smallest of the 3 sizes we've included in your kit. And I'm going to take the contents of card number 4 and plop all of it into one of the envelopes. Moving on to card 3. Plop that. And then finally card 2. Plop that. And then we're going to make card number 1 together. Nice and easy. Okay, let's begin maybe on the inside. We can just go ahead and get that rolling. Get these pieces out of the way. I've got my ATG gun that I typically use for all of my card making. I'm just going to add the white liner to the inside of this brown card. And it should be scaled to have equal margin on all 4 sides of the scored area. And next I'm going to take this brick colored piece and I will add it to the edge here. I'll use my little grid ruler just to make sure that I have a nice level placement of this. I tend to place these things up or downhill, typically downhill, so just make sure it's nice and level. I'm going to add a thinking of you, and before I do, I'm going to find my corner chomper. I like to use this. It's simple, quick, and adds a nice finishing touch to my sentiment here. So I'll add that to the inside of the card, and that's set to go. I'm gonna give it one more little burnish here so that these flaps aren't flopping. And now I get to add the printed panels to the flaps. So I'll add some adhesive to these. And choose your orientation based on, whatever the art landed on there. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of an all over thing. Okay. Next, I'm going to just nest these 3 pieces together. So it's the graphic and then the burgundy, or brick rather, it's going to go on the blue here. Just a bunch of different color combinations on this. And if you don't like these combos, make your own combos. It's fine. That nests so nicely. And then let's prepare our medallion here. So what I did for this one, I took this beautiful blue ribbon and I did, some people would know it like as a cancer ribbon in a way, like a ribbon for a cause. And I just sort of decided, all right, well, if I go at this length, I have a little loop at top, and then I have 2 tails hanging from the bottom. And then I'm going to trim that off. Might as well put the tag right side up. And then I'll make my loop again, now that I've got it cut to the length I want. I always keep my tape dispenser handy with my glue bottle in the back section of it for storage. And that way the glue is always at the tip of the nozzle, which is super nice. Okay, then I can take my circles and center them onto the tag. So it really becomes like this sweet little medallion style nested cuteness. All right, now for this next one, you have to be careful where things go. Now I want this to be slightly past the gap in the folds, but I'm not going to go center because I didn't want this to cover up that art. You know what I'm saying? So I want this a little to the left, but I still want it past the seam of the card. When you're applying your adhesive to this, you have to make sure that you don't go past the, you don't want to apply adhesive at the area that's going to cross over. Let me just quick check distance here. I think it's a 1/2 inch from the edge of the card base. So let me just line up my ruler with the edge of my card base at a 1/2 inch. And then I can center this as well. Nice. Finally, your keep calm and cluck on. You got to be careful here as well to make sure your adhesive does not go past where it's going to land here, so you don't seal your card. Cute as can be. So it stands up nice for display. It really is sweet. Keep calm and cluck on. I can think of a person or two to send this card at this moment in time. That's set A. Let me show you the other 3 cards that we've already placed in the envelope, ready to assemble using the same techniques. So here's the one we did together, virtually identical. And this one I just switched out the ribbon to the brown plaid. Super cute. This one I used the blue again. I shortened it up a little bit so I could keep him visible. And then same with this guy. So adorable, so simple, easy, right? I love that. A happy birthday to one cool chick on the inside too. Okay, so that was set A. Here again is your sample. So what I would do if I were you is you can pop this one into the final envelope if you'd like. And just stack these up, set them aside until you have a moment to finish the assembly. We're gonna move on to set B together. I'll unload everything from the pocket and once again, try to get things in order by size, and likeness. Lots of little strips in here, so we'll just get our piles together and make sense of it all together. And we can turn to page 4. And our instructions were already, past 1/3 there. All right, so we have got these big card bases. I think what I'm gonna do is just make a fold on the biggest scored area because I don't want them all folded quite yet. Remember to bury the bump. Okay. I'm going to begin by distributing the blue for card 1, then brick for card 2, and white for cards 3 and 4. Go ahead and deliver these little scored pieces. So the brown, taupe, brown. Then we're going to alternate some colors here. So I'm going to use taupe, brown, brick, blue. We might as well do the sentiments. Did you know that people who take care of chickens are literally chicken tenders? Kind people are my kind of people. I wonder if chickens do the people dance at their wedding, and another kind people are my kind of people. Innies, have a happy day for that one. You're the best for this one. Congratulations on this one, and you're the best here. Each one gets an excellent 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one receives one of these cute little drawstring bags. Then each card is going to get 4 of these printed panels. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. As far as these last guys, they're going to go on card 3 and card 4. And same story here. Let's load these parts and pieces into the A6 envelopes that I've included as well, just to keep everything organized and straight, and everything except that first card. Take the blue card now and set everything else aside for now. I just want you to open it so that the base of the card opens like this. So all these flaps are on the left. And the reason I didn't want you to accordion fold the rest of it is it's just easier to attach all of these pieces on at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and apply adhesive, and this is total assembly line style. I could do the adhesive all the way down the entire piece, but since I can set them up like this, I think I can use a little less adhesive in this situation. Okay, so then I have a scored area between here and here, so I can center this into this spot. And then my next scored area, and just keep going on down the line, adding your panels. If you think it would be easier to have had folded this to isolate them even more, that's fine. For me, I like to be able to just easily attach these when it's flat and not getting all, popping up on me. Okay, so now this was the bump. I'm going to fold back. Now here's the bump I can fold back this way. There's a bump, so I can bury it. And here's a bump, and I'm going to bury it. And now I have this cute little accordion folded left flap with the card base right here. Next, if you want, you can fold this piece in half, so bury that bump and just make sure it's centered up nicely. And here we have the front of this card panel. So for a little prep work, I'm going to take scissors and rough cut the border that's already there. So I'm just cutting around it, leaving maybe 1/8 of an inch margin. You can tell I'm taking a lot of care and time. Actually, I'm not. Don't spend a lot of time on this. It kind of serves you well to just be real casual about it. And you could distress the edges if you wanted to with a paper distressing tool. Whatever you want to do. Don't be chicken. Okay, let's not attach him quite yet. I got plans. First, we need to sort of figure out where the center of this card is. For that, I'm going to use my grid ruler. So if I find the center of my card and go 5/8 of an inch from the edge. Now, how did I do that magic? Well, this is 3 1/8 here up here, and this is 3 1/8 down here. So now I know this 0 is at the center. Okay. Then if I take this piece and I center this at 1 7/8 on each side, I'm getting the same exact reading. Now I know this piece is centered from left to right and from top to bottom. Okay, so get some adhesive on this piece. And installing this piece right now is really the necessary next task. Don't try to install the front of the card first. This is what's going to set the location for everything else having to do with this card assembly. I'm going to center this on here, but with no adhesive. And then I'm going to open it. And I'm going to put adhesive on this edge and this edge. Watch me. Boom and boom. Now if it moved off center, it's no big deal. Just reposition it. Okay, the goal is now to attach this to this wall. So all I have to do is just fold over on top of it. And the next goal is to attach this to this wall. So I just got to close the card completely and then close on top of that. And now you have this really clever card assembly. A couple things we want to do now. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to make a cute little hanger just with a piece of folded ribbon. And I can either attach that to the brown here or the card. Here I know exactly how high I can go with my cute little hanger. And grab some tape that I have in my handy dispenser right here. Again, you can tape it to the back of the cut apart as well, whatever you prefer. Then we're going to layer this on top. I'm not going to add any foam adhesive because I've already got quite a bit of bulk on the left side of this card here. Ooh, it's so cute. Then I can have a happy day to the inside, and that should nest right into this space with a 1/4 inch margin on all 4 sides. Okay, then Get this guy. We're going to take my corner chomper, optional step, and round the upper 2 corners on the short edge. And then I'll take some ribbon. I'm going to start with a straight edge and then another straight edge. Fold it in half. How about a stapler here? And slide this guy into one of these little bags. And it's gonna go right in here. So I'll add a little adhesive to the back. If you wanna tack it down rather. And then, excellent, so cute. Did you know that people who take care of chickens are chicken tenders? Then they laugh, and then you tell them to have a happy day, and you tell them it's excellent. And the person who gets this card, you just totally made their day. That's set B. Let's take a look at the others. Here's the same exact assembly. So again, that order of doing this accordion folding, center placement, then do the wing. And the structure is a VW card. So if I turn it this way, you can see it's got a V and a W in it. It's a fun way to remember this. And that's not my idea. It was a card structure I'd seen in Pinterest somewhere, and I just kind of tried to make it into a formula. So added that to the white card back just to give it a little extra interest. But again, set B is super fun, and they all get assembled the same way. I can take my final envelope and pop my sample inside. And we've already arrived at the final set. Thanks for hanging in there with me for these fun cards. I'm gonna take everything out of pocket C, and there is a lot in there. So got a little bit of organizing to do. And we haven't even really had to touch pocket D at all. I did pretty much allocate all the embellishments to where I wanted them to be, but don't forget that you have this in here if you want to add more. Otherwise, when the session is done, you can pitch the whole thing. Totally up to you. So don't mind me while I organize. You do the same. You can put me on pause, and I'm going to sort all of these little squares into piles by size. The first thing we'll do is obviously shrink down the size of our card bases by burying the bump of all of your score lines. If you didn't score them, not the end of the world, because we did cut the paper to be with the grain, thus preventing that crumpled fold you get if you're trying to fold a card against the grain. You know what I'm talking about. If you've been folding paper for any length of time. Okay, so I just I'm gonna do my bulk burnishing trick. So 4 cards at once, and 1 or 2 sweeps on each side with the bone folder saves you some time. Looking at page 5 of my instructions, our first card, number 1, is going to be brown, and next brick, then blue, brown, brick, blue. Say that 3 times in a row, and then we're going to go horizontal on the taupe metallic. Brown, brick, blue. That's a tough one. Okay, then our panels here, we're going to begin with blue, taupe, brick, brown. We have some squares to distribute. So on this first card, I'm going to go top left is going to be taupe, middle right is taupe, bottom left is taupe. Then I'm going to alternate the remaining 3 spots with brick. You can change these colors up any way you like. I just tried to get as much variety as I could. Now, we're going to go blue on this one for the first 3 spots. Blue, blue, blue. And then I'm going to alternate with brick. So it helped to have these sorted out by color. On this one, I'm going to go brown for the first three. You can see I just got a total pattern here. And then blue. You're not going to believe this, but over here I'm going to go brick. And then shocker, blue on these open spots. Things are already taking shape beautifully. I need some more squares. So this is the easy part. I'm gonna go easy on myself first. We're gonna go pattern now on the upper left, middle, lower left, upper left, lower, middle right, lower left, and like so. Then we have Cutaparts for the rest. So we've got just chicken up on you. We got a chicken and some flowers down over here. The next one's gonna have this chicken and another just chicken up on you and another set of some flowers. Then we're gonna put this cute little chick, and they say it's the thought that counts, and some flowers. And then this one says, or has a little chick, and then the best time to call me is text message, and then some flowers again. Okay. Sometimes I can tell what kind of mood I was in when I designed the sentiments for the cards. And trust me, a lot of time goes into choosing them. Okay, now we've got a white panel here and here. A printed panel on this one. And then I'm going to go a brick strip, a blue strip. Let's do a brown one with this one. Nope, let's do a taupe and then brown. Number 3 gets this guy, and number 4. Hope all is well. Hope all is well. But I went ahead and sent this card 2. And then the horizontal. Just kidding, missing you. Let's talk soon. Okay, so wow. I'm gonna get my envelopes. You getting the routine down here? I bet you are, because you know this is not our first rodeo now. We've made, even if you are doing this with me for the first time, this is the 3rd set of cards we're making, but we do this every month and we make a lot of things together and it's so much fun. You get to learn a lot and master all these formulas. You can recycle them with papers from your stash and make more cards. Super cool. Okay. This is pretty straightforward, my friends. So here I'm going to just flip. This is assembly line style. So if you were making all 4 cards at once, I would just go ahead and do that. And I'm going to add adhesive to each square and flip it over onto the nesting square. These pieces obviously get placed onto the panel. So I want 3/16 and an 1/8. Let's see how that fits. Nice. Okay, so I'm gonna flip, adhere. So with my ruler, I have a cube. I'm gonna lay this down 1 cube from the top and 1.5 cubes from the left, with 1 cube in between. And then I can just follow that template on the other side. For those of you who measure, and of course, do you have to measure? No, you can eyeball this if you would like, but I appreciate that we can measure if we want to and really have it be professionally and neat looking. Professional and neat looking. Okay, now we have some jute in your kit. I have it all ready for my photography. It looked so nice, didn't it? I got a fun trick to share with these cute little things. You gotta pop the center out of this applique. And you're gonna need 2 pieces of ribbon. Now 1 piece I want to be able to fold in half and reach to the back of the card. And same with the other piece. I want it to be able to fold in half and reach to the other side of the card. Okay, so I'm going to begin by threading this through. Let's see, this is the front, I think. They look really good on both sides, to be honest. Okay, so I'm going to thread it. And here I'm going to kind of place this where I want it to end up, which is going to be right about there, okay? Then flip it over and allow a little space between the jute. And my tape is always ready. And now, isn't that pretty? Just kidding. Okay, now situate your little thing and thread again from the back to the front with another piece of jute. Okay. Do you see how the jute is leaving the top on each side? And I don't want that. I want it to be backwards. So I'm just going to switch it. So now it looks like this ribbon is running through this way and this one is running this way. And then just spread it again and going to the other side till it's nice and secure. And tape your jute again on the back on the other side. Isn't that sweet? You're going to love it because it's perfectly flat as a pancake. Should have called them pancake flowers. And make sure the card opens on the right side. Have you ever done that? Have you ever adhered your card face to the base and realized that the card then opened on the left? That's never, ever happened to me. No siree. Never once has that happened to me. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to use my ruler again to make sure this lands, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch from the edge. I hope that if you've been taking classes with me for any length of time, you feel confident in your measuring and your ruler and things. Now this is pretty thin to add my adhesive to my standard, so I'm going to use bookbinding glue and add this maybe with 1/8 of an inch reveal. So the ruler helps ensure that when I drop this with the wet glue on it, it's going to be right where I want it to be. Nice. And just because I didn't do it before, but I'm in the mood, and then around some corners. Just kicks it up a notch, doesn't it? And add here, and you're done. Such a lovely card. Let's look at the others. So that was number 1. That was a direct copy of this one. And then number 2, they say it's the thought that counts, but I went ahead and sent this card too. And the best time to call me is text message. Just kidding. Oh yeah, so the duck I added to the inside here, and I did not add the little strip that I added on the inside of some of these too. So you can see how I finished this one off. And I do try to snap a photo and take a picture of the inside of each card. I add that to the instructions to help you out. So there you have Roost card kit. Isn't this a fun set? I'm so pleased with how these all turned out, and I hope you like them as well. I hope you like these card structures. You recycle them with more papers in your stash because I know you all have one. If you like this theme, be sure to join me for the Roost page kit. And if you're a fan of projects, check out my Roost Podium book album. This is a great giveaway for a friend. Once you create it, maybe you could add pictures. And this is something that can be stowed easily on a shelf like a book, but it has an easel built into it so that you can lay it on its angle and display it. It sits up on the counter perfectly as well. I also have them designed with several other Club Scrap page kits, and it's just a wonderful project. You can buy the complete Roost set, or you can buy components to help you make this project out of another collection as well. So join me for this workshop as well. It's coming up at the end of September, and I really hope I can see you there as well. Again, thanks for hanging out with me. I had a great time. I'll see you next month.